Well, it really started, I was a little farm boy living in a town called Turlock, California, which if you're going to give the earth, you would slip it in there, you'd give it an enema in Turlock. And so I wasn't real fond of Turlock. But we lived on a ranch right on the boonies, and I was very small. So when I was 13, I was 5 feet tall and 93 pounds. And that was an era of the 98-pound weakling. So I got beat up by everybody in school. I don't remember ever winning a fight. And one day, the meanest guy in school was 17. Now remember, I'm 13. So we're in the 7th grade. And he used to beat me up whenever he felt like it. And I was always strong, but I didn't know it. You know, hay baling and that kind of stuff. I had the tendon strength. But my dad was an alcoholic, no older brother, and never got to play any sports, so I didn't know. But anyway, so I was just a no resistance. So he beat me up. Well, this particular day, the last time he beat me up, he was about 6 feet tall, about 250 pounds, fat boy, but Portuguese guy. And he came and not only beat me up this time, I had an old balloon-tired bike that I rode back and forth to school. It was very important to me because it was 18 miles each way. And he took my bike and he put it on a drinking fountain after he beat me up, and he wrecked the spokes, and he took a switchblade and he cut the tires. So I was hysterical, crying, and he went to the bathroom, and I snapped. I finally had had enough. So I got a brick, and when he walked out of the bathroom, he walked out, and I'm standing over here, poof, goodbye face. Popped an eye, broke both of his collar, his cheekbones, his mouth, knocked out teeth, blood, everything all over my brick. And so he was in the hospital for months and months and months in reconstructive surgery, and he never came back to school. So 17, he was in the 8th grade. But that was my first motivation. Now everybody, I took the brick around to everybody in school that had also beat me up and let them know. I said, I'll take a rock, a bat, a tree, a gun, a club. I'll put a rock on my lap and jump off a roof and crush your skull in. But you will never beat me up again. You are going to die. You saw what I did to Richard. So everybody is scared of me. Now I was still 93 pounds, but I was a psycho that they were scared of. And I liked that feeling that for the first time somebody was scared of me. So anyway, but then I left home rather than kill my father. My father always stuck hay hooks in my arm, screwdrivers in my hand, hammers in my face, which you felt, the skull here. And so I don't know, I was just lucky. God spoke to me because I didn't know about Bubba and prisons and bologna sandwiches and rapes. All I knew was that it would make my mom unhappy, and so I just got lucky. Thank God it was a decision that changed my life, to not kill my father. So I got on my balloon-tired bike and I rode 162 miles away to a town called San Jose, California. Moved in with an uncle. But now I'm going to high school and nobody's afraid of me, nobody knows me. So I decided I need some tools. So I started wrestling. And unlike these, I know we have millions of people who are 900 and 0. I'm not. I'm 0 and 900. So I got my butt just kicked. And I got up to 100 pounds, and by the time I was a sophomore, I was 110 pounds. By the time I graduated from high school, at 17, I was 5'7", 130 pounds. So it was a very slow, I didn't get my height and my weight until years later. So I start wrestling, but I was getting my butt kicked in the first year pretty badly. The second year, I won a few wrestling fights probably, but I decided to wrestle the heavyweights, the super heavies. I wanted to wrestle the biggest guys I could. And at first, they just beat the crap out of me. But after a month or two of me coming back, no matter how bad they hurt me, break my ribs, whatever they do, black my eye, I'd come back. And so they got respect. So they started teaching me rather than hurt me. But now I got to work with guys, Val size, big guys, big, strong guys. So when I went to wrestle people my weight, it was like a pop cap. So that was the evolution, was the willingness to get my butt beat and to continue to train. So then last 2 years, I went undefeated. And I won the SVL Wrestling Championships and got a scholarship to San Jose State. I go to San Jose State, now I'm a little wise ass. Now I've gone typical from little geek punk to egotist. And as we say, at the feast of egotists, everyone goes home hungry. But I'm now this little egotist, because now I'm confident I'm not afraid of big guys anymore, and I'm confident I can wrestle somebody. Don't know how to punch or kick yet. So in high school wrestling, everything is on the ground. There's no stand-up throws. And I think to this day it's the same. We call it referee's position, where you're down on all fours, one or two of you. And I was really, really good at it. I was actually kind of mean. And so there's this Japanese fellow, and I didn't know he was legally blind. I didn't know that his father had taught him judo, and it was a Kodokan black belt, the 4th degree, legit. And that's a big deal. In those days, 5th degree was as high as they went. But he trained his son. His son was a 1st degree black belt. So first week we did ground fighting. I beat him up. Next week, he gave me my flying lessons. I didn't know what judo was. I thought it was Jewish bread. But I mean, my feet were up scraping the ceiling. I thought he was going to kill me. So for a week, he beats the crap out of me. So I couldn't wait for next week, ground fighting, and then I beat the crap out of him. About the 5th week, we're both walking in like, we could barely train. I mean, we're sore everywhere. And he said to me, he says, I still don't know he's legally blind. He's only seeing, we're real up close, he could see me a little bit, I guess. He said, Bob, he said, how about we stop beating each other up? And I'll train you in judo and you train me in your ground fighting. And I said, sure, that's a great idea. So we did, became friends. So later I met his father, who hated Gaijin, and he beat the crap out of me. But after about 6 months, he decided I was tough. So at least he let me come back. Then I read about the great Gene LeBel. And he won the nationals, judo nationals in San Francisco in 1954-55. What blew me away was little Gene was 165 pounds then. He's grown a little bit. But not only did he win, they had lightweight, middleweight. Those two winners fought off. Then that winner fought the heavyweight and the light heavyweight. And that winner went out. Well, that 54, Johnny Osako beat the light heavyweight. Johnny Osako was a big Japanese, 6'2", about 220, and it was undefeated. He'd never lost a match. Gene LeBel snuffed him in about 3 or 4 minutes. And it was mind-blowing. Well, then he comes back the next year, and Gene was going to turn pro wrestler. But Osaka put the word out that it was just a fluke. So he comes back the second year and beats Osako in half the time, just to prove a point. So I said, I got to train with this guy. So my goal then was so my certificate was signed by Iriso Kano, the son of Jigoro Kano. So now I started realizing if I'm going to do this, I have to do it with the best. And Gene LeBel seemed to me to be the best. So I moved to LA to train with him. I meet him. He's not 165 pounds anymore. And he goes, kid, I got 2 gears, kind and kill. The rest are BS. And he proceeded to beat the crap out of me. So 48 years I trained with him, and I never even came close to submit him. So I definitely 0-900 against Gene LeBel. And you try to put a leg lock on that's like a telephone pole. But after a while, he continued. I've never trained with Gene when he didn't hurt me. Anybody that trains with him understands. It's just the way his old school training. But he started appreciating I guess my toughness, because I kept coming back like the bad penny, and started really showing me some good stuff. And the thing was amazing about Gene LeBel is he is the toughest man alive. At 83, I don't think there's anybody on earth that could beat him. But anyway, we became good friends, and I became his black belt. Now he said, go train in everything. Everything's got something good. There's no bad system. There's bad teachers. So I started studying Thai boxing. Then I made a black belt in Shorin-ryu. I made a black belt actually in Okinawa Tay. But then Joe Louis came into the school because it was the only Okinawan school, and he was fresh out of the Marine Corps. It's about 65. And so I became his first black belt in Shorin-ryu. And that certificate was signed by Izo Shimabuko, because Joe didn't have certificates. I was his first black belt. So now I realized the pedigree, if you're graduating from Harvard or Turlock High, it's a big difference. So now I got Kano on my judo certificate. I've got Gene LeBel, he's the first MMA guy. And now I got Joe Louis, Shorin-ryu. Studied Thai boxing, studied American boxing, and then became friends with Chuck Norris in '64. And in '67, we became partners. He bought out Joe in my school, which was very profitable. And I took over the business. Now I'm a black belt with Chuck Norris. But I fought it for a long time, and probably 1970 before I made black belt with Chuck, because I didn't want to learn katas anymore. I'm a fighter. I like fighting. My whole mentality was fighting. I couldn't see the sense of katas. To me, it was a waste of time. But I understand, later I learned, the old masters linked their techniques because they trained a lot alone. And so they wouldn't forget techniques, and they used their imagination to be fighting somebody, turn, turn, turn. And so later I got an appreciation for it, but I was then too sick of it. I had too many black belts at that point to want to learn. But Chuck insisted, because we were 50-50 partners in Chuck Norris karate schools, and we took, our 2 schools were profitable, took the cash flow and opened up a 3rd one, took the cash flow and opened up a 4th one, took the cash flow. We never opened up a school until we had the cash flow from the previous schools. So our schools made a lot of money. After a while, we started buying the locations. So I got interested in real estate. But finally, about late '69, Chuck insisted that I learn the katas. And so I had to learn them all, from Gicho Hyung, Silbu, Concept to Basai. And that I tested and made black belt with Chuck Norris. Then a few years later, I made black belt with General Che, who started Taekwondo. And then I started training with the fabulous Machado brothers and trained with them for several years and in jiu-jitsu. And so it was fun because Gene LeBell's transitions are very rough. Mean, I mean, when he's transitioning, he's sticking elbows and knees and he's giving you pain like you don't believe. Yeah, he says, I want to make them feel like a submarine. They want to dive, dive, dive away from the pain. Well, now I get with Machados, and they're just gentle. They're brilliant, their technique, but everything's smooth, 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 use weight and transitions. So it was great to get the contrast. So I've continued to train my whole life. I'm a natural born runner. You know, in my teens, I was running, you know, in the high 4s and the low 5s. And today, at 77, I can do a 6.5 minute mile. So I'm just a natural born runner. And backwards from jabs, hook and cross and spin. So I've always been fascinated with condition, but to more so to be effective in fighting. And so that made the transition. So Chuck Norris was really my finishing school. Gene LeBell made me tough on the ground. Joe Louis made me tough standing up. Very basic, almost primitive side kick, back knuckle, sweep, reverse punch. No spinning back kicks, no round kicks. Chuck Norris had them all. Every technique in the book. And he's a timing guy. But more importantly, now I started getting life's lessons because I remember in our 8th school, Chuck and I trained hard. We did morning and then we trained all day and then we do night training. And then we go to school and I would teach a kids class, he'd teach the black belts class. Go to the next school, he would teach the kids and I would teach the black belts. So we were doing a lot of training. And after a while, I realized that we could get plenty of black belts, plenty of people to teach, but very few people to run the business. And we were lucky, Chuck and I, because we have so many similarities, it's unbelievable. More importantly, our philosophy is the same. Our moral character, our belief in being a great American, to be a good human being was important. So I remember getting in the car with him when we were 8th school, and I got in the car and he said, Bob, he said, you talk about yourself too much. I said, what do you mean? Well, you're always telling people how tough you are and this and that and boom, and boom. And he said, let me give you an example. Well, I can't use this particular example, but he said, if you had a certain body part that you claimed was the largest in the world, he said, you could tell 1,000 people, they're not going to believe you. But if you lay it on the bar and they see it, what's the point? The point is, people believe what they see way more than what they hear. And so you need to stop telling people about yourself. Let other people see your deeds and they'll talk about you and they'll even multiply your exploits. You'll become even more famous. And so that was a good lesson. Chuck Norris is a wise man. I love him to death, like a brother to me. But that lesson took me, I don't say I learned it overnight. It took me about a year by osmosis and him repeating it. But I finally got the lesson to stop talking about myself and let my deeds speak for me like Chuck Norris has done his whole life. And so we were very non-egotistical about, I knew he was the better karate guy. He knew I was the better businessman. So all the years, well over 50 years that we've been friends, we've disagreed on a lot of things, but always with respect. What this country needs right now today is a lot more civil discourse. Example, my attorney for 51 years is a guy named David Glickman, a brilliant attorney, Jewish. I didn't have any Jewish friends until I met him. He brought his 11-year-old son into my school in Sherman Oaks, enrolled him, loved what happened, brought back his 2 students, and we became attorney-client. But he was just to the left of Lenin in those days, 68, and I was just to the right of Attila the Hun. And so we had disagreements, but because we had civil discourse, which this country needs so much more of, because I respect your right to be stupid and wrong, but you have to respect my right to be stupid and wrong. But I don't want you to die because you don't agree with me. In fact, I am always happy to meet somebody who disagrees with me because I might learn something. I don't want to kill them. So part of our problem, particularly on the left, is this desire to hate and protest at Donald Trump violently at his rallies and stuff. And I go, there's no place for it. Trump, along with the idiot Clinton, should be coming out and saying, I disavow this violence. You should be able to disagree, but do it peacefully. We should have civil discourse. We might learn something. Guess what? 51 years later, Dave Glickman and I am no longer a Republican. I'm an independent. I'm left-wing. I'm very social. I'm very liberal socially, but I'm very conservative fiscally. So I don't have a party. I have to vote against somebody to get my candidate. I don't have a candidate. What? Because we've had civil discourse, I learned a lot, and now I've come to the middle. Why? Because Dave Glickman gave me a lot of lessons, as Chuck Norris gave me a lot of lessons. Later, as Bruce Lee was to give me a lot of lessons. Not so much in the martial arts, but in philosophy and how to take a punch and so on. 1962, Bruce was, I was following Gene LaBelle's wisdom, which he said, go train with everybody and go watch everything. So if I knew about a demonstration of any martial arts, I went to see it. So Chinatown restaurant, and a pretty famous martial artist who's still alive, so I won't mention his name, but he came to give this demonstration. And I went with a guy named Bob Osmond. If you remember the late, great Bob Osmond, who was a black belt in Ishinru, and big guy, you know, about 6'1", about 220. And so we were buddies. We had schools close to each other. And so we went down to see this demonstration, this Kung Fu demonstration. And I'd never studied Kung Fu, and I wanted to see it. So we get there. It's about 6 guy Wilo, meaning non-Chinese, and the room is filled with Chinese. And so the guy gets up on the stage and he says, oh, I see we have karate people. He literally spit on the stage, because that was the thing in those days, 50s, 60s. If your style was Shorin-ryu and mine was judo, then you were shit. And if your style was Shotokan and my style was Taekwondo, you were shit. And I didn't believe it. I didn't like it. I thought it was negative. But at any rate, he did this real nasty thing. He mentioned karate and spit on the floor at the same time. So right away I didn't like him. But anyway, he starts giving a demonstration and he says, I want to show you today why Kung Fu is better than karate. Another spit. He says, I invite anybody to come up and hit me as hard as you can. I'll show you can't hurt me. And so 3 guys go up on the stage. Well, in those days, they all get into Shuto stance. Remember the Shuto stance that everybody got into? So now it's not hit me, it's hit my arm. He didn't say that originally. Hit me as hard as you want, but now puts his arm out. So they're getting the Shuto stance going. And of course, they're not hurting his arm. So I'm looking at that and I go, of course you can't hurt somebody. Shoot him in the neck, shoot him in the face, but you're not going to hurt an arm out there. So then he says, all right, put your arm out, I'm going to break your arm. Well, these guys go, like, heck, you're going to break my arm. We're out of here. So they left the stage. So I'm looking at this guy and I go, you can't hurt my arm that way. I said, well, you can hit my arm. You can break my arm. So I step out there, put my arm out, and he's very clever guy. What he does is this. Okay? Across my wrist. And he's hitting pretty darn hard. I give him credit. And I said, I can't feel it. Because if I don't respect you, you're never going to know you hurt me. You hurt me and I respect you. Hey, that was good. I didn't feel good. Not this guy. So I already didn't like him. All of a sudden, welts coming up my wrist. I said, I can't feel it. When are you going to break my arm? Break my arm. Go ahead. So I'm taunting him now. So now I flash on my Irish temper and I slap him. Bam! He spins around. Flop. Now, oh my God, I knocked this clown out, or he's faking. But he rolls off the stage. And I realized then I had my bourbon and soda in my left hand. And I'm looking at a sea of silent Chinese faces, and I thought, I'm not a comedian. Now I am, but then I wasn't. I had no routine. I'm thinking, I think I just, you know what, upped. I just better get off the stage. So I'm trying to be cool, but I'm going, I'm probably going to die when I get into that sea of Chinamen who are pissed and not saying a word. And Mr. Deadly Kung Fu Grandmaster is laying there doing a floppy chicken. I get over to Bob, and he does what my wife does, clench teeth. I think you just got us killed. We better get out of here quick. Not too fast, though. I'm thinking the same thing. How do we get out of here quick but not look like a chicken running? So we start walking towards the door, and I'm looking at this one tough-looking guy. He's headed right for me, so I'm going to knock him out first. But we're both getting into the paranoia, looking around, right? Guy walks out and sticks his hand out. He says, hey, I'm Bruce Lee. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen. You're as cocky as I am. He says, I want to do what you did. But he was saying Kung Fu is better than karate, and I'm a Kung Fu man. So we go outside, and we talk until the dawn. So that's how we became buddies. And then I started training, telling him about the great Gene LaBelle, and so on and so forth. And so then it went from there. I brought him into my family. Chuck Norris, Mike Stone, Jim Harrison, Pat Burleson, Gene LaBelle, everybody. Igor, man that Balloon, now has left us. But I brought him into my training circle. You only get great if you train with other greats. And you only get great if you get your butt kicked by the greats. And they give you the gift of their skill set. And then you give it to others, which is, why I love traditional martial arts. That was the basic story how we met.